Okay. Good morning, everyone. Shavuot Tov. This will be our last class until Shavuos. Okay. There is no class next week. Very good. So I'll begin with some free advertisement. This is the Shavuos book that we put out 2 years ago. There's actually a new edition that's out. So if you haven't gotten it yet, I see someone came prepared. What's that? My wife's bringing her edition. So when she comes, she'll. Okay, so what I want to do today is we have an hour and a half. We have a lot of different subjects to cover. As usual, there's always more material to cover than there is time to cover a general Jewish issue. So what I'll try to do is like this. I want to spend some time in general about Halacha Shavuos, some important reminders and checklists. Speak a little bit about interesting Shavuos facts and questions and answers. They go into the whole section of milchiks and fleishiks, having the milchik meal, and as well cover some Hilchos Yontif. Okay, I know that's a lot of information, a lot of different subjects, but the Rishon will be able to juggle it. So if you have any Yontif questions, hopefully the last 20 minutes I want to deal with any Yontif questions, like Hilchos Yontif. Can you squeeze lemons on Yontif? Can I select a fly for my soup on Yontif? There are questions that have to do with Malacha. Okay, so let's begin with the holiday itself. The holiday of Shavuos has 5 different names. We're on page 32, but we're going to be skipping around, so you have to be on hold with your hand the whole time. We have 5 different. The holiday of Shavuos has 5 different names, 3 biblical and 2 rabbinical. Biblically, the first name we find in Scripture is Chag HaKatzir. That is the first name that is used in the verse when it's discussing the Shavuos holiday. That's in Shmos, and the reason for that is because usually the harvest would begin in close approximation to the holiday of Shavuos. And if you actually notice, all the holidays of Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, the 3 holidays, Shalosh Regalim, have to do with something to do with produce of the land. We have on Sukkot, it's Chag HaAsif, the gathering, so they all relate to the produce of the land. I'll speak louder. The second scriptural name that we find is Chag HaBikurim. Bikurim is due to one of 2 factors, this name. One of the reasons is that there was a first fruit that was brought to the temple on Shavuos, which is the Shtei Halechem. One of the Karbanis offerings that was special to Shavuos was that they would bring two chametz breads. That was one unique aspect, that it was chametz, and the main offering was bread. Where do we find that as an offering that the main aspect of the offering is bread? Usually it's meat, and the bread comes with the meat. You order a main dish of meat in a restaurant, you get some bread. You get a little bit of bread with you. But the main offering is never the meat, is never the bread, and then the meat is the side course. But in this case, it was. That's unique about Shavuos. Shavuos, the main offering was bread, and it was chametz. It was never permitted to offer chametz in the temple. Never. Severe prohibition. They have to keep Pesach there the whole year. The whole year they have to keep Pesach. With exception to the Shtei Halechem. The two bread offerings of Shavuos were made of chametz, and they were made of chametz from wheat. And which wheat? The new wheat. This is one of the reasons why it's called Bikurim, as it's referring to the new wheat offering that was brought. Another reason it's called Chag Bikurim is simply because the halacha is that starting from Shavuos, you can offer the new fruits of the Shivas Haminim, the rimon, right, the pomegranate, the olive, the dates, the figs, the grapes. We would bring it to a whole pilgrimage to Jerusalem, bring it to the Kain, and that would begin from Shavuos time. Shavuos time until Sukkot was when you were able to do it, to bring it. So that's another reason why it's called Chag Bikurim. A third scriptural name is Shavuos. That's the typical name we have today, due to the word Shavua, which means week, W-E-E-K, and because it's made up of 7 weeks. Another alternative is that it has to do with Matan Torah, that we entered into a pact, a Shavua, a swear with God, and therefore we call it Shavuos. The two rabbinical names are as follows. We have Atzeres. In the Shulchan Aruch, that's how Shavuos is called. It's called Atzeres, which literally means stop. And like, right, Shmini Atzeres, the 8th stop, the 8th day of stopping and not doing Halacha. So why is Shavuos called Atzeres? So it doesn't really explain why the sages chose this, but Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev in Kedushas Levi says a very simple pshat. It says all the other holidays contain specific mitzvahs. Sukkot has. The Sukkah, Pesach has. The Passover offering. What are you going to call Shavuos? What are you going to call it? Cheesecake. What are you going to call Shavuos? What's special about Shavuos? There's no special mitzvah. There's no special mitzvah. So therefore, it is called Atzeres, that the mitzvah is just to stop doing Halacha. That is the uniqueness of Shavuos, that we just don't do Halacha. It's a regular Yom Tov. The 5th name is Man Matan Tereseinu, the day of the giving of the Torah. Now, in truth, is Shavuos the day that the Torah was given? And the answer is absolutely not. The Torah was not given on Shavuos. Now hold the tomatoes, we'll explain. What does this mean the Torah wasn't given on Shavuos? So let's do a little calculation. The Jewish people left Egypt on a Thursday, right? It was a Thursday. And which was Tes Vav Nisan. That was the 15th of Nisan. Now, that year, there were 30 days in both Nisan and Iyar. They were Shleim. And the Torah, we all agree, was given on Shabbos, which ends up that Shabbos was the 52nd day of the Omer. That means Shavuos that year, right? Shavuos is always the 50th day of the count. Yom HaChamishim, the Shavuos. So when they began counting on Thursday night, the night after the Seder, right? Thursday night they counted day 1. When did they reach day 50? Thursday night. When was Matan Torah? Shabbos. So Shavuos did not fall on Shabbos. What did fall on Shabbos was the 2nd day of Shavuos, right? Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golias. Which the Magen Avraham actually says that's a hint to the idea of the 2nd day of Yom Tov in the Torah. That we, even though Shavuos did not coincide directly with Matan Torah, the 2nd day did, even though they didn't keep the 2nd day yet, of course. But nonetheless, in any event, so that is just an interesting fact that originally Shavuos did not fall on Matan Torah. although they highly coincide with each other, right? They were just a day apart. And based on this, we've discussed this in the previous years. We'll just repeat it to refresh our memories, that even today, it is possible, even though today we have a set calendar of always 1 month being 30 days, 1 month being 29 days. Nisan is always 30, years always 29. So Shavuos will always fall on the 6th of Sivan, which is always the 50th day of count. There's just no other way to go around it. The only way to mess that up is if the calendar would have two 30-day months of Nisan and Iyar, or two 29-day months of Nisan and Iyar. If there's two 30-day months, then Shavuos would be a day later, then Matan Torah would be a day later. If there were both 29 days, then Matan Torah would be a day earlier, not Shavuos. The holiday would still remain, right, the 50th day. I'm sorry, the Shavuos would be a day earlier than Matan Torah. The point is that today our calendar is static, it doesn't move. It's the same every single year. So obviously this is not able to be budged. The only case budging is possible is in a case that somebody messed up his counting. Now, it doesn't mean if someone by mistake, he thought tonight's count is day 44, and he's been counting 44, 45, 46, 47. Comes Thursday night, he's already on 49. He's like, whoa, so that means for me, Shavuos is tomorrow night. You made a mistake. You didn't count correctly. You didn't count correctly, so you got to go like everybody else. But in a case where a person counted correctly, but he happened to have an extra day here or lack of a day here, then he has to go by his personal count. And we know how that happens when a person passes the international date line. There's no other way to add a day to your week or take away a day from your week. Still not living in sci-fi world. The only way that's possible is through passing the date line. I'll just give a very practical example. Here we have, over here we have a picture, as you see, of the secular international date line, and I use the word secular because according to Halacha, it's a debate where it is. Some say the date line is actually right here, Israel. Others say it's over here through Asia, through China. But this is the accepted approach, as you see over here. This is the international date line, right through here. Now, if you look, you see those two little dots there? Well, you probably can't see it, but there's two little dots where I'm pointing, and they're each on the opposite sides of the date line. Okay. Now, I don't know what this is specifically referring to, but I do know that in a map, we have two islands that are very close to each other. It's a half-hour canoe ride from each other, so that's how close they are. One is called Western Samoa, because it's on the west of the date line, closer to Australia, and the second is called, or New Zealand, I should say. Second is called American Samoa, which is actually an American territory. Okay, it's American-held territory, called American Samoa, and they're a half hour from each other. Now, interestingly, as I discovered when I was doing my Google map traveling from this island to the next island, it was so close, I said I might as well just visit also Western Samoa. I got very confused of where I was because the date suddenly changed. So right now in Eastern Samoa, which is American Samoa, it is Saturday morning. And if you go a half hour in the canoe boat to Western Samoa right now, it's Monday morning. Yeah. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but they're a full day apart. They're a full day apart. 24-hour apart. There's a 24-hour difference between the two places. They're half hour in distance, but they're full 24 hours away because the line has got to go somewhere. We all agree. There's no argument that there is a date line of which the 24 hours began from here in the first day of creation. And, and whatever was behind that date line was the last area to begin the first day of creation. So since we all agree to that, there's a line somewhere, and if we accept that that's where the line is, so if somebody was counting Sphira on, he counted day 48 in American Samoa, and then he took a little trip to Western Samoa for a half hour, and he got stuck there, his canoe broke, can't make it back, so it's civilized, people live there. So in such a situation, he would have to keep Shavuos a day later. Why? Because Western Samoa was already on day 49. He hasn't yet counted 49. When they enter Shavuos, he's going to count his 49th day. and so on and so forth. If someone in the Western went to the Eastern, a more practical example, most people that aren't that many Jews, I believe, that travel from Western Samoa to Eastern Samoa, even though that's the closest example of such a case, but we have people who travel from Australia or New Zealand to Hawaii or to California. That's really where our most common case examples take place. And it's even possible for someone who's traveling from Shanghai to the US for that to also, it depends on the times of his flights, it's possible in the times that he's flying for also to either lose or gain a day, which would mean that he would have a different day of Shavuos. Correct. The question is which 2 days? Would he be keeping a day before everyone else and then have 2 days, so his second day ends by everyone else's first day? Or is he keeping it a day later? This year, the good news is that since it's anyways 3 days in the whole Chutz La'aretz because of Shabbos, so anyone who's already starting Shavuos Friday night, because of this, which there are people who enter the situation, it is in essence no real difference because no one's doing Malach on Friday night. They're not doing it also because of Shavuos, but no one's doing Malach anyways. The only difference would be in the davening. They would have a Yantiv davening, while everyone else would have just a Shabbos davening. And of course, the third day, they would daven a weekday davening, when everyone else is davening a Yantiv davening. But those are minor differences. Those are not the... It is recorded in the Gemara and Shabbos and Tosfos there that on Shavuos the Satan does not have any power. This was recorded in the letter of the Rebbe Rayatz to the yeshiva students that one has to take advantage of Shavuos for good resolutions, for times of increasing in Torah study and in resolutions for Torah study. As on this day the Satan is distracted, similar to his distraction on Yom Kippur and by the Kiyas of Rosh Hashanah. So Satan is sent away on a 24 or 48-hour vacation. He gets his mind placed elsewhere. So we have a free playing field of being able to accomplish a lot more in Shavuos. In Chassidus, it's explained that every holiday has its benefit that it gives towards the year. Holidays in Jewish tradition are similar to a shopping spree. You go shopping in this mall, you pick up clothing, you pick up perfume, you pick up different things which you use for the whole year. You don't use it up in one day, right? New clothing can last at least a week until you get bored of them. But with holidays, it's meant to last the whole year. We pick up different things in the holiday shopping spree, and every holiday represents a different store, different things we buy. So what is it that we purchase on Shavuos for the rest of the year? So it's explained in Chassidus that on Shavuos we're meant to pick up pleasure in Torah learning and mitzvah fulfillment. Tainug in Limud Torah and Kiyum mitzvahs. And that connects with the idea of why, specifically on Shavuos, we find the halacha is that it's forbidden to fast, even for a fast of a dream. People used to be bothered by their dreams. People would have a bad dream and they'll tell it to their friends, and then they'll call up the Rav and make him a sugar for 2 hours with his dream. That's what people used to be, and a lot of people would fast in order to sweeten the bad dream. Today, we tell people just ignore the dream, don't pay attention to it, move on with life. But it used to be people used to fast, so the halacha is that on Shavuos you can't fast, even Shabbos you're allowed to fast for a dream. Even on Shabbos, someone who had a bad dream, he wants to fast for it, he's allowed to. On Shavuos, we say he's not allowed to. And the reason is because on Shavuos, everyone agrees you have to have physical enjoyment. This is all coming from the emphasis that Shavuos is meant to give us enjoyment in Kiyum Torah and Limud Torah and Kiyum mitzvahs. We said this last year. Let's see who remembers. So what year was the Torah given? If you remember, we said a hint of how to remember this. We're on page 38, but don't tell us from inside. Anyone remember what year we said the Torah was given? We can figure out how many years it's been. So we said the Torah was given, the Hebrew year was Jewish years, is 2,448, 2448. Chaf Daled Mem Ches, right? Chad Moyach, 2448. And the secular year is 1313 BC, which is easy to remember because, in essence, the Jewish people became bar mitzvah by Matan Torah. That's in essence what happened. We all became chayav in Torah mitzvahs. So it's 1313 before the Common Era. That is when the Torah was given, which would make, so how many years are we now? We do the math. We do 1,313 plus 2019, so we're about 320 something years, right? Okay, it's a while. It's a long time. Relatively, it's a long time. Not that many generations. If you go back generations, we're only approximately about 100 generations from Matan Torah, maybe even less, depending on every family is different. So you have some families that have a family tree from the time of Levi. I saw someone with a family tree from Levi. He's a Levite. They have a family tree from Levi. So if you count from the times of Egypt, from the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, I think if I remember correctly, I counted between 70 and 80 fathers going up. It's not that much, but everyone's different. It could be one father had a kid at 80 years old, another father had a kid at 20 years old. So, every family would be different, but it's not that long ago if you really think about it. I'd like to think about it it was like 3,000, fathers ago. No, not that much. Okay. Regarding that the mountain that Torah was given, if you remember, we discussed this in the past, that it's a big debate. And while we know the Hebrew name was Har Sinai or Mount Chorev, Har Chorev, we don't know exactly where that physically is today, the exact location, right? In latitude, the coordinates, we don't know exactly where they are, but people who are interested in attracting tourists have made claims to various different areas. And so, as far as I know, the last I checked, there were 3 places that were vouching to be the area that the Torah was given. One of them being in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, even there it got. Even there. Saudi Arabia. Yeah, different. What is interesting is that the Yavitz writes in his Sefer Migdal Oz that there's a tradition that we have that the Har Sinai, the mountain Torah was given, has a special bush-shaped rock. I once held it in my hand. I once saw it. I don't know how to access it. I'm sure you can buy one. This is a picture of one of them. And meaning that whenever you break the rock, it shows a bush inside of it. It's like it's a natural phenomenon that, obviously no matter how many different ways you break it, there's always a bush inside. So this actually the Yavitz records 300 years ago as one of the phenomena that we find regarding Matan Torah, regarding the bush. Okay, we're going to begin some of the halachas. Before we begin over here, I just want to say some halachas outside that relate to specifically this year, because we are going from Shabbos to Yantif. Things to remember, to know. Okay, number one is that, of course, as we know, we're not allowed to ignite a new flame on Yantif. So due to that, we have to make sure to arrange to have a 48-hour candle prepared before Yantif, so it's available for lighting, for extending a flame from lighting candles, and if you want to cook, whatever you need it for. Likewise, a Yizkor candle or a yahrzeit candle, if someone has a yahrzeit on Shavuos, is to be lit before Shabbos. So you need to get a 48-hour candle. Okay, they sell it in the stores. You get 48. You can also get a 72. You can also get a 7-day candle. The main thing is it just has to be lit for 48 hours. That's the idea. So that's something to remember to do.
You can't light it, from another candle.
It depends. If you can light a candle on Motzei Shabbos, such as your Yantiv candles that you're saying a blessing over. Obviously, that's why you need to have a 48-hour candle available, so you can have a flame that you can extend from. But the reason why I said the yahrzeit candle or Yizkor candle has to be lit before Yantiv, because by definition, those candles are there for the sake of the soul of the person who passed on, and not for the sake of adding light to your Yantiv table. not for the sake of lighting cigarettes, and not for the sake of any other use. They're there simply for a spiritual benefit for the soul of the deceased. Now, it's very nice and dandy that someone wants to do that, and we have no complaints, but you're not allowed to light fires on Yontif for the sake of the souls of deceased. On Yontif, you can only extend a flame for the sake of food-related matters, such as seeing my food, so I'm not in the dark, or having a romantic Yontif meal with candles on the table. But stam to make the neshama happy is, let's put it this way, to light a yahrzeit candle, a Yizkor candle on Yontif doesn't make the neshama happy because you're not allowed to do it. So how would he be happy by having an Isser done on his behalf because of him?
But can you light from that?
So the answer is yes, you can. It's permitted. So therefore, let's say, for example, I forgot to light any candle. I didn't light anything before Shabbos this year. And I would also like to benefit from having a yahrzeit candle lit. So what I can do is 2 for the price of 1. I go to a neighbor, bring a yahrzeit candle over, light the candle from their flame, use this candle as my yahrzeit candle, and likewise use it to extend a flame. There is no isser to benefit from the yahrzeit candle. It's just a matter of what people usually do. People usually don't benefit from it. But if you decide to also benefit from it, it's not a problem at all. You're allowed to light it. A second important halacha for this year is that we have to remember it's forbidden to do any preparations from Shabbos to Yontif. So we can only start preparing things only once Shabbos is over after nightfall, after which we say Baruch Hamavlu ben Kodesh leKodesh, between holy and holy, and only then can we start doing the preparations. It goes without saying that preparing the candles and lighting the candles can only be done at night. But even simple things such as putting the drinks in the fridge or the freezer, only after Yontif has begun are we allowed to do so. We can't do any preparations while it is still Shabbos, just like we don't put preparations for Shabbos to Matzah Shabbos. Same idea. Regarding if you can defrost your challahs or your meat, take it out of the freezer. So the answer is like this. The best thing is to avoid the situation, either by using what they call a fridge instead of a freezer, leaving the food in your fridge, then it doesn't have to defrost. You take it from your freezer to your fridge on Erev Shabbos, or to take it out of your freezer after Shabbos is over and put it on the fire and let it defrost on the fire. Hopefully it'll be ready by the time the main course is ready to be served, or if it's challahs, it'll be ready by the time they come home from shul. But to take it out during Shabbos itself for the sake of the night enters us into this issue of doing preparations on Shabbos for after Shabbos. Nonetheless, if it's not cooked, then that's an even more serious problem. I mean, if it's not cooked, then it's muktzah on Shabbos, and it's a different issue. And obviously, you can't put it on the flame on Shabbos. That goes without saying. That is never allowed on Shabbos to heat something up unless it's dry, fully cooked. And definitely not for the sake of after Shabbos. Here I'm talking about just taking it out and leaving it on the counter. Can I take out the frozen chicken, pre-cooked, leave it on the counter, it's going to defrost, and then as soon as Shabbos is over, I'll put it on the pot, I'll put it on the fire. So the answer is you're not allowed to do a preparation on Shabbos for after Shabbos, and this is a preparation. So that's why the best thing is to avoid the situation beforehand. However, there are poskim who allow it in a case that it wasn't done, and tachlis, if I don't take it out now, we're going to be still 2 o'clock at night, still waiting for the meat to be served instead of being in shul and saying Tikkalol Shavuos. And enjoying cheesecake if you want to be milchik by then, right? So in these cases, there are some poskim who say it's mutter, but as I said before, the best thing is to avoid the situation and prepare things beforehand in a way that do not require frozen foods to be defrosted on Shabbos itself. Even in a case that one wants to follow the lenient approach, it's only allowed with enough time for it to be fully defrosted before Shabbos is over. So technically, you can benefit from it on Shabbos. So technically, I can benefit and eat this chicken on Shabbos itself. It's already defrosted.
Would you take out that morning enough challahs for like that day, the first day, and also for the night?
But what you can do is you can take out, let's say, a number of challahs, which includes challahs that are going to be eaten on the night, but you haven't yet decided which ones you're going to choose for Shabbos. You need 3 challahs for Shabbos. You're taking out 6, and you're going to choose the 3 best. The 3 best will make it. The last 3 will make it. We'll leave it for Yontif. But to choose, these are my Yontif challahs, these are my Shabbos challahs, take them all out, who are we fooling? Right? Every time you take out a new challah, you're troubling yourself for after Yontif. So it only works in a case that you have not yet decided what's what. Other halachas that are relevant to this year. Can a person go to sleep on Shabbos for the sake of being up Shavuos night? Is that considered preparing for after Yontif, for after Shabbos? So it certainly is preparing. The question is it a type of forbidden preparation? I think we can all agree that going to sleep is not a troubling act. It's not an act that exerts effort. It's in fact very relaxing. And so therefore it's not exactly the same as simply doing work, taking things, moving things from one place to another, which is laborious activity. This is relaxation activity. Bottom line is that it's 100% mutter to sleep on Shabbos for the sake of after Shabbos, even though you're specifically doing so for the sake of being up on Shavuos night. For those women who do stay up, right? Not all women stay up. The main minhag is for males. The women didn't necessarily accept this minhag of staying up on Shavuos night, although they could if they want to. It seems that the women were already up on the day of Matan Torah bright and early, so they don't require to do this tikkun. It was the men that slept in, and therefore we need to fix this up every Shavuos. However, some places can say that you shouldn't express yourself and say, I'm going to sleep on Shabbos for the sake of being able to be up tonight and being able to stay up. Bottom line, according to Alter Rebbe, it's mutter. There's no restriction. The only time a person can't say, I'm going to sleep so I have energy for after Shabbos, if he needs that energy for a forbidden activity, such as, I'm going to sleep on Shabbos so I can cook up a storm on Shavuos night. Can you cook on Shabbos? You can't cook on Shabbos. You're mentioning a forbidden activity. But to say, I'm staying up on Shabbos so I can learn up a storm on Shavuos night, are you allowed to learn Torah on Shabbos? Last I checked, there's no prohibition. There's no issur to learn Torah on Shabbos, right? So, therefore, there's no problem in saying it. Regarding if it's mutter to take a shower on Shabbos or on Yontif, now that we have 2 days and we're in the summer with expected very hot weather, taking a shower or bath on these days is very pertinent. And the answer, even on Shabbos, someone who is very hot and sweaty or disturbed is allowed to take a cold shower without turning on the hot water. That's even on Shabbos. Obviously, they can't squeeze their hair, they can't do any malachas, but just placing cold water on the body is not an issur. We are accustomed not to do so, but in a time of need, we relinquish that custom. We permit doing so. On Yontif, it's even a little more lenient. On Yontif, it's permitted to also take a warm shower. So if you don't have an automatic boiler that turns on the flame, it is permitted to even open up the hot water slightly, so you're taking not a cold shower, but a warm shower. Here too, it's only permitted in the case of need. The person's very sweaty, very hot, it's 2 days, that's when it's mutter. Any hot water is mutter, even if it's electricity, even if it's fire. As on Yontif, there's no issur of cooking hot water, because this hot water that's being cooked, it's not being cooked just for my shower. It's in the boiler for all multi-purposes. Anytime I open up the hot water faucet, this hot water is going to come out, whether it be for adding it to my rice that I'm going to cook on the fire, or to washing dishes. The hot water is being added for many purposes. There's no issur of me opening up the hot water tab on Yontif and thereby having cold water added and getting cooked. The only time there would be an issur is if you have an automatic boiler. If you have an automatic boiler, in Judaism, the way it usually works is that the more technologically sophisticated you get and receive those benefits during the week, the poorer of a person you become on Shabbos, because you can't use these things. So if you keep Shabbos in mind, simple makes perfect. The more complex and technologically advanced you get with your gadgets and stuff at home, the less of a luxurious Shabbos you'll have. For example, a high-rise luxury condominium in Bnei Brak was selling for millions of dollars per apartment. The wealthiest and rich of the rich purchased it, living up, a five-star life, better than everybody else. But when it comes to Shabbos, they live like poor people, literally like poor people. Why? Because the high-rise building was made with special technologically advanced water pumping systems that as soon as you open up the faucet, the pump turns on, sends electric waves that push the water to your faucet, which means that you can't turn on your water on Shabbos, which means that all of them would have to prepare the water before Shabbos in their bathtub and use that water for whatever they needed. You can't wash hands, so they had a very luxurious weekday, living, but a very poor Shabbos living. And that's why simple makes perfect when it comes to Shabbos life. Same thing with fridges. The more technologically advanced of a fridge you get, the more of a need you have of a Shabbos mode, setting on that fridge. So you're not doing any malacha. So basically, if you have an automatic boiling system, you have the luxury every time during the week you want hot water, you don't have to wait, you turn it on, hot water comes out instantly. You can't turn it on at all on Yom Tov, not even just to warm up your water, because you're igniting a new flame. You can't ignite a flame on Yom Tov. You can only extend a flame on Yom Tov. So that's why this would be a problem. But if you don't have that type of system, then you're able to mix some hot water to your cold water and take a warm shower. A hot shower is forbidden on Yom Tov. Okay? Hot showers are forbidden. Any other questions of this year, of the 2 days? Okay, so we're going to begin to go through from a checklist of different halachas of Shavuos. We begin omitting Tachanun in both Shachris, Mincha, and Kriyash Mashal Amita, starting from the first day of Shavuos. Starting from the first day of Sivan. Okay, the first day of Sivan, which is this year, right, on Monday night, Rosh Chodesh, until our custom is the Sephardi custom in Minig Eretz Yisrael, till the 12th of Sivan. So we get 12 non-Tachanun days. The Ashkenazi warped custom is only till the 8th day. So once the 9th day begins, they already start saying Tachanun again. But the custom in Eretz Yisrael, Ashkenazim and Sephardim, is all till the 12th day. Why? So obviously Yom Tov we don't say Tachanun, and the days preparing for Shavuos are all considered holy days as it's written in the Torah about them. We have Rosh Chodesh, then we have the day of Amleches Kainin, that we were called priests, a priestly nation. We have the days of preparing, so it was all like a holiday preparation, so therefore it's all considered a holiday. Now why after Shavuos? Because after Shavuos, in temple times, which in Mirz Hashem we will, God willing, experience this year as well, we would have to bring the karbanis not on Shavuos, but after Shavuos. That's how it was done. People didn't bring the holiday sacrifices on Shavuos itself. They would bring in a Matzah Shavuos or any of the 6 days after. So if Shavuos this year is on Sunday, so you would have until Friday to bring your sacrifices. And it's 3 sacrifices: Oilas Re'iyah, Oilas Simcha, and Oilas Chagiga. And Oilas Re'iyah, a carbon Simcha, a carbon Chagiga. Those are the 3 sacrifices that had to be brought. And they were brought during the days after Shavuos, not on Shavuos itself. So because this is when all these karbanos were being brought, therefore we don't say Tachanun on these days. And I'll mention, based on that, there is a concept of Aliyah L'Regel, of doing a pilgrimage to Yerushalayim, to the Kaisel, next week. Next week, any day, during the 7 days, Shivas Yemei Miluim, whoever is able to, especially if you're already in Jerusalem anyways, there's a Minig Yisrael of taking a trip to the Kaisel. Yeah, a lot of people who live in Jerusalem walk and stay Shavuos night, but I'm talking about non-Jerusalem residents. that even non-Jerusalem residents, such as ourselves, if we're able to make a trip to Yerushalayim for the sake of visiting the Kaisel, it's a minig Yisrael to do. It's the pilgrimage that was always done by each one of the Shalosh Regalim. Men, women, and children would go. And especially if you're going to be in Jerusalem anyways next week, then certainly one should take the effort in making it there and make his face shown to the Western Wall. As all of the three major holidays of Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, there is a mitzvah deraisa upon the leader of the home to rejoice himself and his family members. Now, how do you rejoice? Not by turning on blasting music that's very, very happy, but it costs a little bit of money. You got to go out of your way and make some purchases. So for the husband, for the man, it's quite easy. All he needs to do is drink a little bit of wine and eat meat. But to please the female members of the family, it says he has to buy them jewelry or clothing. And I'll emphasize, if someone who's not married, then they would have to buy it for themselves and for their daughters. They end up entering the shoes of the head of the household, who has the responsibility of Simchas Yantiv, of ensuring that everyone in the family has Simchas Yantiv, so that can be fulfilled through buying clothing or buying jewelry. It's permitted to buy new clothing during Sfira. It's permitted to buy new clothing during the Sfira period. There's no problem. Even to wear. Some are accustomed not to wear new clothing during Sfira. My opinion is that it's mutter. But certainly here, for the sake of fulfilling a mitzvah in Torah, obviously it's permitted, jewelry, clothing, whatever it is, for the sake of fulfilling this mitzvah. Haircuts. So even those who are accustomed to not cut their hair throughout the entire Sfira period, which is the Chabad custom as well, it's mutter and a mitzvah to cut the hair on Erev Shavuos. We're on page 48. It's permitted to cut the hair on Erev Shavuos. The question is, however, this year it's not permitted to cut the hair on Erev Shavuos because it's Shabbos. Can't cut your hair on Shabbos, so what do? Do we get a haircut on Erev Shabbos, which is not yet Erev Shavuos, or do we forfeit getting a haircut? And the answer is that it's mutter to get a haircut and a mitzvah to get a haircut this Erev Shabbos. So this is mainly by men. The halacha is that men are not allowed to enter a holiday with afro hair. They have to look like mention, not like monkeys. So that's a mitzvah. They're not allowed to. That's why the sages prohibited cutting hair during Chol Hamoed, because they wanted to ensure that people would enter the holiday looking like a mensch. Now this applies to women as well. They're not allowed to cut their hair during Chol Hamoed, but having long hair by a woman is a little different by a man. There's nothing wrong with it by a woman in terms of looks. By a man, it looks a little strange. That's why a man would have the requirement. We know that Leviim would have to, Kayanim would have to cut their hair every month. They have to get a haircut every month to serve in the temple. If you let your hair grow 30 days, you're already considered a barbarian. You can't work in the temple. So there were specific laws regarding haircuts. So Halacha l'maisa, everyone can get a haircut with Kavod Yantif, starting from Erev Shavuos. Generally, we avoid blood tests or any blood-related work on Erev Shavuos, due to the Medrash says that there is a malach, an angel called Tabach, who was ready and waiting to, it says, slaughter the Jewish people if they were to refuse accepting the Torah. Now, in the end of the day, we accepted the Torah, so he didn't have to do his job, but there's a danger involved due to him every single year, and that's why, in general, we avoid any blood work on Erev Shavuos. This year, it's not relevant because this year it's Shabbos, so this is not applicable this year, this halacha. Another halacha that relates to this year. It is forbidden or a mitzvah to abstain from starting a seudah from the 10th hour of the day of Erev Yantif, which is about 3 hours before sunset. Nowadays it's a little more because we have in the Jewish hours it's more than 60 minutes in an hour. So it's Shozmania, so it's about, if Shkia right now is at 7:40, so I would say these 3 hours begin probably at about 4 o'clock. Starting about 4 o'clock, one should abstain from starting a meal, from beginning a meal, which means if you eat shalosh shudas, if you're accustomed to have a meal, wash on bread for shalosh shudas, then this year you are to begin the shalosh shudas meal before 4 o'clock. Don't begin it after 4 o'clock, only before 4 o'clock it is to be begun. Which would also mean if they're doing a Shabbos Achdus party, Shabbos Achdus get together, which is usually done the Shabbos before Shavuos, which this year of course is Shabbos and Erev Shavuos. So you have to wash before the third hour of before Shkia. As I said, before 4 o'clock, that's when it is to be begun. Everyone already washed, and it is to be ended with enough time so you're still hungry by the time the Shavuos meal comes at night. Only Friday morning. We only start Friday morning. Even on a regular year, at Shavuos, at Erev Shavuos is a weekday, we wait till the day of Mem Tes. We don't do it from the night. There's a minhag to spread plants and trees in one's home, the coven, for Shavuos and also in a shul. The basis of this minhag is twofold. The plants is in commemoration of Matan Torah. It says it was a beautiful mountain with lots of flowers. And the trees is in commemoration of the judgment day that's taking place for fruits on Shavuos. Shavuos is judgment day for fruits. Fruits are judged in Shavuos. How sweet your apples, your pears, your plums, your peaches are going to be. When you go to buy a watermelon in the store, you're going to get a good watermelon, you're going to get a watermelon made of rubber. All these judgments of fruit-related matters occur on Shavuos. So, in commemoration of that, the custom was to remind us to daven for the trees, to have trees in shul and trees in the home, to bring trees in. Practically. As we know, the Vilna Gaon in the Gra abolished these minhagim because he says it's too similar to the customs of the Gentiles when it comes to katzmach. But they go ahead and they bring the bush, the katzmach tree, and they decorate it, and we don't want to have similarities. Now, minadin, in the letter of the law, there's no isser in doing it because it's being done for a reason, and a Jewish reason at that. But nonetheless, Ashkenazim were since we lived in the Christian world, we were very, very careful to distance ourselves from any similarity at all, even if according to Halacha, technically there was no prohibition involved. This is practically the reason why in many places we're no longer accustomed to do this, and you'll see many Ashkenazi shuls no longer bring trees in. Nonetheless, those who continue to do so, especially in Sephardi communities, there's nothing wrong. They're following the original minhag. Also in homes, many homes they bring plants, trees, etc. I don't know so much about trees, but definitely plants. And that is based on this custom. There's no isser to do so. It's just, as I said, some don't do so because of the position of the Gra. Some muktzah-related laws regarding plants and trees and whatnot of the like. So any plant, or if I should really use flower, any flower that's been picked before Yantif, before Shabbos, is not muktzah on Yantif. So you can have it, if it's inside the vase, you can move the vase around, you can take it off the table, on the table, it's not muktzah. However, there are a number of restrictions regarding removing it from the water and placing it back into the water. That's only allowed if the flower is already fully open. But if you bought roses that aren't yet fully open and they're going to open as the days go by, then you can't put it into the water on Shabbos or Yom Tov. You can't add water to the vase on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Only if you have fully open roses. So too, if you have a pot plant and you would like to bring it into the house to cover Shavuos, if it's right now sitting in the sun and you're going to bring it in the house, which is in the shade, and certainly if it's right now sitting outside in earth, and you're going to bring it inside, it's a problem to do so on Shabbos and Yom Tov because it engages or stops to engage the growth process that the sun and the earth cause. So therefore, you're not allowed to do so. And so there's different movement limitations that we have with pot plants and even with flowers, as I said before. But in general, a fully open flower does not have any problem at all. You can put it in the water, take it out of the water. The only thing you can't do is initially put water in the vase on Shabbos. You have to prepare the water in the vase before Shabbos and before Yom Tov. And in that case, you can put it in on Yom Tov or take it out and put it in. Regarding candle lighting, as by every Yom Tov, the minhag of Chabad, based on the Alter Rebbe's ruling, is to first light the candles and only then say the blessing, like is always done. Others are accustomed to do the opposite. By Yom Tov, they first say the blessing, and only then they light the candles. The reason of the difference is because the whole reason why on Yom Tov, on Shabbos, Ashkenazi custom is to first light and then say the blessing is because we say if you say the blessing, you've already accepted Shabbos and you can't light anymore. So we delay the blessing. And on Yom Tov, even if I already accepted Yom Tov, I'm allowed to light on Yom Tov. And I'll tell you a secret. This year, we've already accepted Yom Tov. It's after Tzezek Echavim. We can only light after Tzezek Echavim. So it's already Yom Tov according to everybody, whether you accept it or didn't accept it. So then just say the bracha first, as is always the case. First you do the blessing, and you do the action. But nonetheless, the Alter Rebbe says, keep it simple. If we start saying, in this situation you do like this, and that you do like that, you're just going to confuse everybody, and people are going to start getting confused about what to do, and then they're going to do it wrong when they're supposed to do it this way. So the best thing is keep it one way the whole time forever, which is always first light, and then always then say the blessing of Sher Kedishanu, and of course we say Shechianu, right? We say Shechianu. I've heard that some women have a custom of not to cover their eyes when they light Yom Tov candles. This is a minhag meshubash, a confused custom. It is not a correct custom. I'll tell you where the custom comes from. Anyone see this custom, heard of this custom? No. Yes? I'll tell you where it comes from. The custom comes from those poskim who rule, and those who follow this ruling, that on Yom Tov first you say the bracha, and then you light. The whole reason why we cover our eyes is to not get benefit until the blessing is said. So those who follow the opinion that on Yom Tov first we say the blessing, they don't need to cover their eyes because they're anyways not getting benefit from the candles, which aren't yet lit until the blessing is said. So they wouldn't cover their eyes. But all those who first say the first light and then say the bracha, we always have to cover our eyes in order to have the benefit only after the blessing. So some people, what did? They took both things. They took the minhag of their forefathers not to cover their eyes, but they took the minhag of the Alter Rebbe to say the blessing after. So this is a minhag meshubash, a confused minhag, and should not be done. Those who are lighting first are always to cover their eyes at the time of the bracha. As we mentioned earlier, you have to say Hamav Baruch Hamavda ben Kodesh LeKodesh between, before you strike the match, before you start lighting. Okay, that's pretty much everything for Erev Shavuos, and Shavuos night we'll begin with, let's see. Okay, just to remember, the Motzei Shabbos Shavuos night davening includes the paragraph of a Toidiyenu, which is basically equivalent to Baruch Hamavda ben Kodesh LeKodesh. It's like saying Havdalah. So we say that in Shemona Esrei on Motzei Shabbos. You'll find that in your siddur. It's a special paragraph to remember to say that. This year we also have a special kiddush called Yak Nahaz because we have to do Havdalah. The same way we do Havdalah every Motzei Shabbos, we also have to do Havdalah when Yantiv is Motzei Shabbos, because Shabbos is higher than Yantiv. So therefore we have to separate Havdalah between Shabbos and Yantiv. How is that done? It is done during the Kiddush itself, and it's called Yak Nahaz, which stands for the order of how it's done, which is first Hagafen, Hagafen, Yayin. Then we do Kiddush, which is Mekadesh Yisrael V'Azmanim. Then we do Ner, which is Boyer Meir Ha'esh. We don't do anything to the candle, we just look. We don't put our fingers next to it. That's even men. Women, even during the year, don't put their, even on a regular Motzei Shabbos, don't bring their fingers close to the candle. Only men do so, but they look at it. So this Motzei Shabbos, even men, everyone's equal. Even men only look at the candle, they don't put their nails next to it. The next step is Havdalah, of course. We say Baruch HaMavdim Kedesh L'Kedesh, and then the last step of Yak Nahaz is the Bracha of Shechion. If someone didn't do this, they forgot to do Yak Nahaz, they forgot to say Havdalah, and they remembered in the middle of their meal, we tell them stop eating, and right now take a cup and say Havdalah. They don't have to do Havdalah in the middle of their meal, because you can't eat.
Why don't women look at the nails?
Women do look at the candle. What? Oh, at the nails. Yes. The reason is, as writes the Magen Avraham, is because of a certain occurrence that happened many, many years ago, if you remember. There was a famous woman named Chava, and she famously or infamously fed forbidden fruit to her poor, innocent husband, who was just trying to do the right thing. And he was covered, this is the men's perspective, right? And she was covered with, it says that it's really Kabbalistically, but it could be also physically, they were covered with nails. That was like their protection. Don't ask me exactly what that means. I've never seen a picture of Adam Rishon before the sin, or after the sin for that matter, but definitely not before the sin. And it says that he was covered by a nail. Now I know it sounds kind of strange. The whole body was a nail, covered by a nail. What does that mean? But that's what it says, that he had certain nail features before the sin, and that was removed once he ate from the forbidden fruit. And since Chava gave him to eat the fruit, so therefore it's not really so nice to look at the nails. We find a few mitzvahs or halachas in that type of direction that women abstain from in order not to remind about the sin, such as Kiddush Levana, right? It says that due to the sin, the moon was made smaller. So therefore, a woman avoid doing Kiddush Levana. Find regarding, what else? We said the Ha'esh, we said.
Drinking Havdalah?
No, that's not because of that. It's a different minhag. Okay, there's other things also recorded. Right now it's slipping in my mind. We see that separating challah is done as a tikkun. That's why women do it. Also lighting candles is a tikkun. So there's different things that have been associated to the sin of the chedei tzadas, and therefore women abstain from putting. There's no isser. It's just a minhag. The minhag is not to do so. Okay, what should be the menu for the Friday night meal? For the Shavuos night meal. So we'll get into the whole milchik meal very soon, but just to say for right now, there is no one should not be having a dairy meal at night. It should be a fleishik meal, as there is a mitzvah to eat meat on Yantif, and that applies to every meal of Yantif, meaning the two meals, the night meal, the day meal. So that's why only during the day do we have the minhag of eating milchiks, not at night. Now, someone who never eats meat, they don't like meat, that's a different story. But someone who generally does eat, I'm saying they shouldn't arrange for the night meal to be a dairy meal. Now, I know that some people do so, but nonetheless, the poskim have explicitly negated this and said that one should have a fleishik meal at night. Regarding staying up at night, so this is mainly, as I said before, a custom for the men. um, do based on different reasons. It's not based on Kabbalah. It's not a custom on women to read the tikkun, but nonetheless, some women do read the tikkun. There's no prohibition to do so. Let's put it that way. If you want to stay up and do something else, you can do something else. You learn something else. The main subject of learning on the night of Shavuos is Teresh Bal Peh, Mishnayos, Gemara, Halacha, is Teresh Bal Peh, meaning not scripture, not like Tanakh. You shouldn't have like a Tanakh shir. Better than nothing, but if you're following the directives of what should be learned, But in general, those who say the tikkun, by the time you're done, it's already morning, so there's nothing more to do. In the tikkun, actually, we say the entire, we say chumash, so we are reading from Tanakh, but saying after the tikkun is done, the shir should be in the oral Torah. Any questions on that? Anybody have any questions on that? Move on. Okay, so those who are going to be staying up the whole night, let's not forget, staying up the whole night means not until you start seeing the sun, but means until it's alois hashachar according to halacha, daybreak, of which there's a number of opinions, right? There's a number of opinions of when is defined as daybreak, what time is defined as daybreak. So if we follow the earliest approach, then daybreak would be defined as probably nowadays sunrise is about 5:45, right? Sunrise is about 5:45, so daybreak would probably be here in Sfas, maybe 3:30, 3:45. It's not so late. It's not so late. If your meal goes on until 12 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, it's only another 2-3 hours that you're staying up. So the point is that anyone who stayed up the whole night, they enter into a few questions of what to do about brachas. Today's daily halacha feature regarding the kain shama. Bottom line is that we say all the morning blessings except for Asher Yatzar, unless you go to the bathroom. That's the bottom line. All the morning, that's our minhag in Chabad. There's other traditions amongst and other rulings amongst other groups. But what we follow is that we say all the brachas except for Asher Yatzar, unless you use the bathroom, of course, in which you say it. We don't say Kriya Shema Shalamita for those who are staying up Shavuos night. And likewise on Shavuos night, one is to avoid marital intimacy. We avoid marital intimacy on Shavuos night, as is the case by every Yontif, the first days of Yontif. It's based on Kabbalah. Okay, the next day, I'm skipping Shacharis, we're going straight to Kriyas Torah, right? We're all aware of the Rabbi's directive that everyone should try to make it to the Kriyas Torah of Shavuos, even though women are exempt from Kriyas Torah, practically by the reading of Aseres HaDibros, since initially everybody was there, including even children, therefore everybody, including children, even a one-day-old child, should try to make it to the Kriyas Torah of Aseres HaDibros. Nonetheless, if the child is younger than the age of being able to be educated to stay quiet, they are to come for Aseres HaDibros and only for Aseres HaDibros. Let them leave right after Aseres HaDibros is done, so they don't disturb anybody else for the rest of the Kriya.
Did you put that in there?
I think we discussed that in our last week's class. It was already pretty clear, but so it's for Aseres HaDibros and just for Aseres HaDibros. But you can put up a sign in the shul and see how many people follow it. Yizkar. It's an Ashkenazi custom to recite Yizkar in shul on every end of the holiday. In Eretz Yisrael, the end of the holiday is in the beginning of the holiday. The first day of Shavuos is also the last day of Shavuos. So therefore, we do Yizkar on Sunday. In Chutz La'aretz, they do Yizkar on Monday. In the Sfardim, don't do Yizkar at all. So never go to a Sephardi minyan for the sake of catching Yizkar, because you'll have to wait forever, because it's never going to happen. They don't do Yizkor. They do what's called Ashkava, which is not just on Yantiv. They do it on Shabbos. They do it whenever you ask them. You have to give a little donation. You give the Gabbai a little donation. You pay him off. And then he does you an Ashkava. But it's nothing to do with Yantiv. It's whenever you want. No one makes times for when to accept money. We accept at all times.
You don't do that for Shavuos or any other?
They don't do Yizkor any Yantiv. It's an Ashkenazi custom. It's not a Sephardi minhag. In Yizkor, so we know that those of course who have parents who are alive they leave the shul. Regarding the nusach, so it's customary to say men and women separately. You can say whoever you want. The main custom, of course, is the father and mother to mention in Yizkor that have deceased. But you can mention whoever you want. The custom of Chassidim is also to mention the Rabbi. That each Chassid would mention his Rebbe that he was connected to in Yizkor separately. You would do it again, right from the beginning. It is not our custom to read Megillas Rus in a public forum on Shavuos, even though in other circles, in Ashkenazi circles, they make a big deal about it and they read it in public. Some even have a Megillah verse, a literal Megillah written by scribes, which I know a lot of Chabad Seifrim that make a lot of money. They get a lot of parnassa from this, even though we don't read it at all. But they write it for other people and they buy it. It's like a real Megillah. We don't read. Our custom is not to read it. There was never a takanas chachamim of thou shalt read Megillas Rus on Shavuos. It's an Ashkenazi custom. Smartim don't do it. It's an Ashkenazi custom that came around, and we don't do it in a public forum. We do read Megillas Rus in the Tikkun al Shavuos. So whoever's doing the Tikkun is reading Megillas Rus, but we just don't read it in a public forum, and especially not from a scroll. On Shavuos, one is to increase in the recital of Tehillim for the simple reason that, as we know, this is the day of David HaMelech's passing, even though there's debate if it was the first day of Shavuos or the second day of Shavuos. Bottom line is we say Tehillim. We say Tehillim on Shavuos. Okay, now we're getting to our milchik and fleshik meal. What we've been waiting for has finally arrived. Okay, so as we touched upon already earlier, the meals of Shavuos have a special emphasis, even more than the meals of a regular Yantif. As a regular Yantif, the halacha is technically, and nobody here should get any ideas, but technically, you can say, I'm not cooking this Yantif, there's no food, we're going to dedicate this whole Yantif just for God. Kulei la Hashem, right? The Gemara says that you have an option of giving the whole Yantif for God, for yourself, or the whole Yantif for God. So I'm going to choose to do Kulei la Hashem, the whole Yantif for God. Meaning I fast. You don't eat. You don't drink. Practically, we don't rule this way. Practically, we rule, like the opinion of the Gemara, that every Yantif you have to do at least half for yourself and half for God. It has to be half-half. That's why it's even Halacha and Shulchan Aruch that the rabbi's speech has to have a time limit on Yantif. On Shabbos, he doesn't have to. On Shabbos, if he wants, he give a drasha for 4 or 5 hours straight. Right, as they say as a joke, that the Rav was giving once a drasha for mamish very, very long, and finally someone said, Rabbi, come on, the children's already cold. And he said, I'm sorry, I didn't have a watch on me. So the guy told him, but you had a calendar in front of you. Anyway, so on Yantif we have in Shabbos there's no time limit, but on Yantif we have a strict schedule. It has to be half for Hashem and half for you. No such thing as you can't take more for yourself and more for Hashem. It's split equally half-half. However, when it comes to Shavuos, everyone was in agreement that you can't dedicate the entire day to God. It has to be self-dedication as well, that you eat food and you drink and you enjoy. There has to be physical enjoyment on Shavuos. So that's what's unique about Shavuos is that it's not subject to the above debate, and everyone agrees you have to have at least chetzi la Hashem and chetzi lacha, half for you. And the reason for this is, already said before, is to emphasize that Shavuos, the day of receiving the Torah, The day of receiving the Torah is, the purpose of the Torah is to refine the matter, the bottom, the lower worlds, the physical being, the physical foods, and therefore, how better to emphasize the whole purpose of Matan Torah, to elevate the physical world by needing to be involved in eating the foods of the physical world. That is why on Shavuos, this is the halacha. That's why, as we said before, even a tainus chalaim, a fast for a dream, a bad dream, is not allowed to be done on the holiday of Shavuos. So the dairy and meat meal. So as we know, it's the wording of the Alter Rebbe is that's the custom in all places. It's a custom in all places to eat dairy products on the first day of Shavuos. That's his wording. So from here we can automatically already understand that the custom does not apply to the second day of Shavuos in Chutz La'aretz. So right, it's only on the first day. Even though that on the second day there are some people who do so as well. Anybody remember what they did in Chutz La'aretz? 2 days or 1 day?
Somebody in my community had a party for the whole community. I don't remember if it was the first or second day, but it was an ice cream party. Yes. And the whole community walked over late afternoon. 4 million kids, people had a big property, and they had ice cream. It was like everybody looked forward to it the whole year.
The whole year? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite.
You just asked them what company the ice cream was, and I'm joking. So okay, but some people do also the second day, but the main custom, as we just read, is that the original and initial custom is the first day of Shavuos, and in Eretz Yisrael there's only 1 day of Shavuos, so there's nothing to discuss. There's no custom to eat milchiks on Monday. I mean, you could. It is not specifically a minhag to eat. The Alter Rebbe concludes after he brings this minhag, u'minhag Yisrael Torah. You have to understand is that there was a point in time that this minhag began that obviously no one kept it yet. It was first beginning to spread. We don't know exactly historically when the minhag began and then became spread to all places, as the Alter Rebbe writes, all Jewry. But originally, every Yom Tov and Shabbos, you eat fleishiks. Nobody ate milchiks. No concept of having a milchik meal. Back then, socially, it was viewed as, what are you, a poor person? What you can't afford? Someone who would offer a milchik meal for a Yom Tov, or a holiday, or a bris, they were viewed as being cheap and not care, or poor. I'm not blaming them, but they're saying they're poor, and they can't afford to get meat. That's how it was socially viewed. It was socially unacceptable, similar to today. If you were invited to a wedding and they served you a slice of pizza and lasagna, between me and you would think it's a little strange, right? Now, even if they told you, well, this is special lasagna, I bought it from this and this island, specially made, every gram of cheese cost even more than a whole steak. What are you talking about? You know how much money I spilled? Doesn't matter. Socially, it was viewed, a milchik meal is a lower standard, and it's not something befitting of a Yom Tov or of Shabbos. With that said, so how on earth can we start introducing a lower standard meal on a Yom Tov such as Shavuos, which we said the opposite of Shavuos, we have to emphasize more eating. Everyone agrees you have to eat on Shavuos. So the Alter Rebbe first and foremost emphasizes, point 1, minhag Yisrael Torah. You may have questions, and it's very nice to use your questions to inquire, to research, to understand, but not to nullify the custom. Do the custom, do the research later. But the custom has to be done. Minhag Yisrael Torah, a Jewish custom is Torah. We don't erase customs just because you have a question. That's point 1. Point 2, the mitzvah is not to change and exchange the meat meal for the milchik meal, but to have 2 meals. One is the milchik and the second is the fleishik. So there's an obligation to have that second meat meal. So you can't just have a milchik meal for Shabbos, for Yom Tov, for Shavuos lunch, and completely abolish the meat meal. And because, according to Halacha, we have to have the meat meal, therefore, the Alter Rebbe writes different details regarding how do we balance the two, what do we do between the two. So we're going to review, we do this every year, we're going to review the order, the proper order is to be followed. Okay, so obviously we have to have the milchik meal first, because once you eat fleishiks, you have to wait 6 hours. And obviously, we have to arrange that the milchik meal does not contain cheeses that are 6-hour cheeses, which we'll touch upon soon. And with that said, after the milchik meal, we have to make sure to say an after blessing, whether we're saying Birchas Hamazon or Amamichya or whatever it is. We say an after blessing, we clean out our mouths with drinking something and with eating something parav. So we can eat a piece of bread, we can eat a cracker, fruits it says is not good, we can eat a vegetable, we can eat something in order to clean out the mouth and wash out the mouth, and we also wash our hands. Practically, the Chabad custom is to wait 1 hour. Others don't wait at all. Minadin, you don't have to wait at all. According to Halacha, you don't have to wait any time between dairy and meat. Right after you finish eating dairy, you can wash out your hands. You can wash out your mouth and hands and eat meat. But our custom, based on Kabbalah, based on the Shlach Kaddish, is to wait 1 hour. And we change tablecloths. That is the order that is followed. Okay, so those are the 4 things we do between the 2 meals. Now we're going to deal with a whole bunch of different questions, related questions to this. So first, let's go through a list of the different reasons behind eating the dairy products, and going through the reasons will help us clarify some of the questions that may be relevant, such as, does it actually have to be a dairy meal? Can I maybe just have some coffee with milk in the morning, and that'll be yaitse, or have a bowl of ice cream? I'll have a bowl of ice cream in the morning in preparation for davening. Give me kayach to daven, and I'm also eating milchiks, and I fulfilled my dairy meal. Or does it have to be a real meal? Do I have to wash some bread, etc.? So let's begin. So the Ramah's reason behind this minhag, which everyone is trying to understand, why did the Jewish people become accustomed to eat dairy on Shavuos? Like, where did this come from? It's strange. We think of it, of course. What do you mean everyone eats dairy on Shavuos? Why? Why do we do it? Tastes good. I don't know. Don't do it all the time. What happened on Shavuos? Do we eat dairy? So we have a number of different options that are brought down in the Mefarshim and the Paiskim to try to explain this custom. The Ramah gives the Ramah, as I say, the least exciting explanation, because it really shoots the whole idea of eating milchiks in the legs. Why, as I'll say. The Ramah writes in the Shulchan Aruch, the whole reason why we eat dairy has nothing to do with dairy. We don't care about dairy. There's no inyan to eat specifically dairy. The reason why we eat dairy is due to a side reason. We want to commemorate, remember I spoke earlier about on Shavuos, we brought the 2 bread offerings, shtei alechem, 2 breads, 2 meals. We want to have 2 meals on Yantif to correspond to the 2 breads. Now, how do we obligate ourselves to have 2 meals on Yantif? According to Halacha, once you wash for a meal, you can't just bench in the middle and wash again. Well, just have 1 long meal. You can't increase in blessings. The only way the Halacha will be allowed to end your meal, bench, and restart your meal for the sake of having 2 meals is if you did something during your meal that forces you to end your meal before you can begin your next meal, such as having a milchik meal and then wanting to have a fleishik meal. Then you're forced to separate the 2, bench in between, wait a little bit, wash out, and have the second meal. So this is what the Ramah says, that the idea of the milchiks is a side product of the idea of having 2 meals commemorating the Shtei Alechem, which would mean that according to the Ramah, someone who had cheesecake and blintzes and cereal and milk and pizza and ice cream and yogurt, he had every milchik product that exists on earth, but he didn't wash for his meal, says the Ramah, you missed the boat. You completely missed the boat. 1 second, that's his opinion. The Ramah, if he was by our meal, he would be just nodding his head like this. What are you doing? You're completely missing the boat. You're making the emphasis on the ice cream and the milk. Where's the bread? Where's the challah? That's the whole purpose.
But if we eat like camembert or things like this, French cheese or hard cheese, until what time can we eat the relation?
Yeah, so I'm going to discuss waiting 6 hours soon. Remind me, I'm going to discuss it after. Okay, but I want to just focus right now on the reasons. So according to the Ramah's reasons, A, we learned that there's nothing really involved in eating milchik itself, and B, the whole purpose is to wash. So according to him, yes, you do wash for the meal. However, there's many other reasons mentioned, recorded in the Paiskim, which according to those reasons do not require washing for bread, as they learned that no, intrinsically, there's something special about dairy that we emphasize on Shavuos, nothing to do with the bread. Bottom line, the way we rule, the way the bad custom is and the widespread custom of the world is that we don't require washing for the milchik meal, unlike the Ramah. The Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch also doesn't write it. He doesn't, even though he does mention a custom that they would need milchik bread for Shavuos. They would kasher their fleishik oven before Erev Shavuos, and then they would knead bread in a special shape for the sake of Shavuos with milk inside. Milchik bread. So, you have special milchik bread. So those who want to do it, there's no problem. There's no isser. You want to wash, like the Ramah says, go ahead. What we're also saying is that practically the widespread custom is not to be makbid on washing for bread, and rather is to simply eat mezainis. However, I do have to mention that many people end up having a lot of different starches during that milchik meal. And it ends up that in essence they have eaten a meal that requires washing, just not on bread. For example, if they had fried blintzes and they had baked lasagna and they had pizza that's made with mezainis, fruit juice, that's what's mezainis. And all this stuff accumulatively reaches, some people, you ever see some people eat Shavuos, the milchik meal, it can reach 500, 600 grams of mezainis. They have to wash according to everybody and bench. So in that situation that someone plans it, so if you only have, you have cheesecake with a little thin layer of mezainis, you have, cooked pasta can never become a maitz, even if you eat 2 whole pots and never become a maitz because it's cooked. Right? If you don't have any baked mezainis products that can eventually accumulate to, the amount is 220 grams, then you don't have a problem. But in the event that you do have all these products and you're not exactly going to control yourself and limit your eating to 220 grams, then just go ahead and wash. Go ahead and wash. Do like the Ramah, as in that case everybody agrees you cannot eat as much as you want and then to stay in Al Michya and have it over with.
What's real milk in that challah
if you want to make milk in challah, you have to make it into a special shape. Make it into a special shape. So you remember it's milchik. So you can make it round. You don't usually make round challah. You can make this challah round. Or you can even put some cheese on top of the dough. So you'll see the cheese. You can't carve the word chalav into it because in Chabad we don't cut. No, some people do that. We follow an opinion that does not allow cutting or breaking engraved letters on Shabbos or Yom Tov. So in Chabad, we do not allow engraving into the dough the word chalav. But other people do follow it, and so they engrave. They have engraved. They engrave on it milchik. So other reasons that are recorded is that the Jewish people didn't keep kosher before Matan Torah, and therefore when they were given the Torah that Shabbos, all their food became treif suddenly, because they were given the Torah. The only thing they had available to eat was milchiks. The only thing they had available. There's different reasons recorded. Right now we don't have time to go through all of them. The Mirz Hashem will have a share feature on this during the week. If you remember also last year we gave a whole share on the Alter Rebbe's Chiddush of the connection between eating milchiks and Matan Torah. We remember we had a fascinating share on that, explaining how the angels, they wait between fleishik, they wait between milchiks and fleishiks, while we wait between fleishiks and milchiks. So by us having a milchik meal and not waiting 6 hours and then having fleishiks, we are emphasizing the difference between us and the angels, and how the angels lost the court case above in the lawsuit against the Torah, that they should keep the Torah, not us. We have the share up online. You can listen to it again. There's a fascinating share on the subject if you remember. One of the offered reasons behind eating cheese is because it says in the Medrash, based on the pasuk in Tehillim, that Har Sinai was called Har Gavnunim. When the Demach says in Tehillim, mountain of cheese, It says it's referring to Har Sinai, and the reason is because that's like saying it was beautiful. It was, it's white, and snow is so beautiful, right? We see something covered with snow, it's so beautiful. We think of ice cream, we always think of milchiks, right? We see a beautiful cloud, we think of dairy fudge, So this was very beautiful. It's called Har Gavnunim, and so therefore we also eat cheese to commemorate that. White is chesed, cheese is white. So there's many different reasons recorded that, again, explain why intrinsically we eat dairy on Shavuos and not just in order to have a separate meal. Bottom line, can a person fulfill the minhag by having cheesecake, ice cream, or a coffee with milk in the morning? The answer is yes. And in Lubavitch, that's how it was done usually. Usually the way it was done is that in the morning before davening, they had a little something milchik. And then afterwards, they would have the meat meal. But nonetheless, even though that's a possibility, the main minhag is we have two meals, as the Rabbi did as well. Right after davening, we have the milchik meal, whether with washing or without washing, and then afterwards we have the fleshik meal. There's a custom to eat honey on Shavuos, as the Torah is also allegorized to honey. There's also a custom to add cumin to your food on Shavuos. Cumin. Cumin. That yellow spice. Sephardim use it a lot. I don't know why Sephardim, they use it a lot for I think maybe Moroccan foods, I'm not sure, but they use it a lot in cuisine. There's another custom of making a bread with 4 heads. Commemorating heads. I mean, I guess, it's like an H, 4 ends. And in commemoration of the Shtei Alechem, so that's like, the 2 breads that they brought in the temple. And for Shavuos, one should try to have specifically wheat bread in commemoration of the Shtei Alechem, which was wheat. It wasn't spelt, it wasn't gluten-free, it was wheat. God is not gluten-free. That's the... Okay, the 6-hour cheeses. So let's discuss this a little bit. We'll close our discussion with this. I'll take questions there. There are various cheeses, especially before Shavuos, that begin floating on the market, and obviously they try to bring exquisite cheeses, and many of these cheeses are 6-hour cheeses that if you eat them, they require you to wait 6 hours. Normally, what is available here in Sfas or in Israel in stores and typical grocery stores are not 6-hour cheeses. They may be hard cheese, but they're not hard to create the status of 6-hour cheese. Yellow cheese is famously discussed in today's Paiskim. Some say that it is considered like hard cheese that you require 6 hours. Bottom line, halacha l'maaseh, it does not. The minhag is not to wait 6 hours, but there are some rabbanim who are machmir. Especially Yerushalmi rabbanim are machmir to require 6-hour wait for all hard cheeses without discrimination. So basically, any hard cheese you eat, they would require a 6-hour wait. You had pizza, they require a 6-hour wait. The good news is that most of the cheap pizza stores, even they would agree you don't have to wait 6 hours after the cheese because the cheese is a milchik, soy. But if the cheese is really milchik, if somehow you got lucky and they actually have real cheese on the pizza, they have actually real milk involved, then they would agree it's 6-hour cheese. When I say that, I mean that it's only 6-hour cheese if it's pure cheese, but if it's 90% soy and 10% cheese, that's not real cheese. No one requires you to wait 6 hours for that. Right. So we have a list on our website and it's going to be on Daily Halacha this week of a list of all the different cheeses. There are just a lot of different ones. The general rule is like this. You can take the general rule. Aside for those who hold that even American yellow cheese is 6 hours, but the minhag of the world, as most can conclude, this is also my opinion, that you don't have to wait 6 hours for these cheeses. The only cheese you have to wait 6 hours for is a hard cheese that has either remained 6 months in its processing. Okay, so many Parmesan cheeses are 1 to 2 years in processing. Many blue cheeses, not all, but many blue cheeses wait 6 months in the processing. Furthermore, that's condition A, 6 months. If it fulfilled condition A, 6 months. for sure you have to wait 6 hours. Now, you can find that out either by looking, when you buy the cheese, look up the name, look up the process of how it's made. Another way of knowing is, as I said, I have the list where we gave all the different cheeses that are made for 6 hours. Another type of cheese that would be a 6-hour cheese is, even if it's less than 6 months, it's very pungent. If it gives off a very, very strong smell, as many blue cheeses do. They may not be 6 hours. Sometimes you can get blue cheese out of 3-4 months, but if you ever smell it, it's a very strong stench. And so such cheese, it's similar to the cheeses as well. And worm cheese. Worm cheese is basically not on the market anymore, so you can't really find it. But if you happen to, maybe they made a special manufacturing for Shavuos of the maggot cheese, so that cheese is also 6-hour cheese.
It doesn't sound rude to me.
So in one of my book, in my Basar Challah book, I have a picture of this maggot, maggot cheese. And I actually met someone wrote to me a letter in correspondence, an email regarding something on my website, a Gentile, who actually, I was surprised when I read. He says, "Oh, I'm from Sardinia." I'm like, "Oh, you mean that's the maggot cheese island?" He says, "Yes, how did you know?" There's one island in the world that produces it, Sardinia. They don't sell sardines, nothing to do with sardines, it's just the name. It's off the western coast of Italy. It's an island. It's not a peninsula, it's an island. And it's the only place in the world that it's legal to sell maggot cheese. You're not allowed to bring it into Italy. You can't bring it into the EU. So anyone who wants to eat maggot cheese, they actually have to travel to Sardinia. So I asked him, he said it's like, it was kind of strange eating it in the beginning, but you get used to it. Anyways, maggot cheese is kosher if it's made Chalav Yisrael, right, kosher supervision, but it's 6-hour cheese as well. So if anyone has maggot cheese as a delicacy for Shavuos. Yeah, so you have to wait 6 hours.
So when can you wash?
Oh, so I want to address an important point. Can you wash within the 6 hours or within the hour? Answer is minadin, it's mutter. Minadin, as long as you don't actually eat meat within the 6 hours or 1 hour of the cheese, it's okay. But those who wait 1 hour, we generally delay the actual washing for the whole hour. But regarding the 6 hours, it's okay. So as long as you don't eat actual meat within the 6 hours, you're good. So if let's say you have your milchik meal, I don't know, at the 10:30, and you have your Parmesan, so you can still have a fleshik meal later on in the afternoon, in the late afternoon.
Can you wash just shkia? You have to shkia to wash the meal?
You have till shkia to wash, but you should have the main course already before shkia. Yeah.
What if can you just not eat any dairy at all?
I mean, minig is allergy to dairy. That's something else.
No. You don't eat dairy all year. You have to eat.
What's the reason? Like, what's the?
You don't think it's good for you.
Oh, so you're saying health-wise. Right. So I would say like this. If there's a real reaction, which it really means allergy, it doesn't, right? You have a reaction to the dairy, whether it be an upset stomach or you get very sleepy. So if it's a reaction that will make you have lack of simchas yantiv, it'll make you have pain on yantiv, then I agree with you, you're exempt from eating dairy, even on Shavuos. But if it's just something that's more psychological and having a cheesecake or a bowl of ice cream will really not do anything to you, then even though you don't have to do that during the year, but in Shavuos you should do so because it's minhag Yisrael to eat dairy.
When I lived in Yerushalayim, the first time I did it on Shavuos, the Israel Center had a meal.
Mm-hmm.
So, you go to the meal. I had no idea what it was going to be. And they served, you washed, and then they served lenses, and then you benched. And I thought, really didn't get our money's worth, But I had no idea what they were doing. And then they had a shiur, and then you came back, and tablecloth and everything. You had this great meal, and then you had the hearing until about 3 in the morning, and you went to the hotel.
So you got 4 meals out of your Shavuos. They did 2 again the next day?
No.
Oh, it's just that night. Okay.
It was really nice.
Okay, I wish everybody a good Yontif. A Kabbalah Satara b'simcha u'b'pnimius, as the Rabbi Rayatz would wish. Sure. Yes.
I gave in because, my parents aren't allowed. So, and my parents weren't Jewish. So what happens when you